If you always wanted to learn Figma but had zero clue of where to start, you're not alone because I've actually been in that situation before. I'm praised and I've been exactly where you are now. That's why I'm the right person to show you how this works. So welcome to Figma Masterclass for absolute beginners. In this second module, we'll be talking about auto layout and component. So I feel these are the two most important stuffs I feel you should know before we commence in designing anything in this class. We'll be starting off with the first one, which is auto layout. Think of auto layout like a smart container. It helps us in automatically arranging our layers, elements, without us doing it manually. So auto layout reduces the stress for us. It's more like telling Figma that these are my design elements, take them and automatically arrange them how you want it, because auto layout just gives that automatic arrangement to every design element we have grouped. Another thing auto layout does, it keeps responsiveness. Take a look at this two UI. One is built with auto layout and the other is not built with auto layout. But you can't tell by looking at it. The only way you can know if an element is set on auto layout is if you interact with that design element. Like I said earlier, auto layout helps us to keep responsiveness. So let's check these two cards, which one is more responsive. So dragging the frame on the right hand side, expanding it like this, you see it's not responsive. But now watch what happens when we expand this frame. So let me just drag this here and select this. You see how responsive this frame is. So if I'm to expand this, let me just shift this down here to somewhere like this. You can see we don't need to manually come inside of the frame to adjust the individual layers inside of it. Auto layout just helps us to do that job. The second frame that wasn't built with auto layout, if we should zoom it to the way that we zoomed the first frame, just look at what happens. Because if I should expand it like this, you see it's not responsive. We just see how to come inside of the frame to manually tweak things around, or maybe place this here and adjust the right hand side and adjust the left hand side and make sure this everything is on the center part. You see, by manually making this adjustment is going to waste our time, especially when we have so much to do in design. Now let me show you how you can apply auto layout to a design element or how to set up an auto layout. So we're going to be recreating this card. Let me just return everything back to the default size. Cool. So the first thing we're going to be bringing out is a frame. So F on your keyboard, drag out a frame. Then we're going to be adding a fill to it. So just go over to the properties menu, go over to fill down here and click the plus. That will automatically add a fill, a white fill to it. To round the corners like you're seeing here, you do everything on the properties menu. So just look for appearance, this is down here. This stuff is what we use in cornering radius of design elements. So clicking the drop down menu will allow us to add individual corner radius to the four sides of this frame. So we want to do that at once. You can just unselect that and select the padding. Let me check the one I use here. So I use a padding of 50, sorry, corner radius of 50. So I'm just going to type in 50 right here and hit enter. So when it's solved, let's just go back to adding our eclipse. So to do that, the shortcut for it is just O on your keyboard, or you can just come over to the tools bar and just select an eclipse. But I like using the shortcut, so let's just press O and drag out a frame. You'll notice something that if we don't hold down our shift key, let me just cancel this to show you guys what I mean. So by selecting O on my keyboard and drag out an eclipse, but you notice something, that the circle is not fully formed, like it's not really that round. So the reason why the eclipse is collapsing is just because I didn't hold down shift on my keyboard while dragging out the frame. So I'm just going to hit this back, hold down shift, first O on your keyboard, select an eclipse, then hold down shift on your keyboard, then use the left key or the left trackpad and drag out an eclipse. You will then notice that this will come in as a complete eclipse without distorting. So that's just one of the hacks you can use when designing. To add an image inside of this eclipse like you're seeing here, the shortcut for it is Ctrl plus Shift plus K. It's just that simple. So this is it right here and I'm going to click open. It doesn't automatically apply inside of the eclipse just because it's on the current cursor, the default cursor now, because you can see the plus and the image there. So for you to add it inside of the eclipse, you just go over to the eclipse and click there once and it just enters inside of the eclipse without any stress. Next up is to bring out our text like you're seeing here. So T on your keyboard and I'm going to write out UI designer dot praise. So this is my Instagram handle actually. You can just go to Instagram and hit a follow. So I'm going to reduce the size of this because 69, it's really big on this text. I'm going to reduce it to 18, then take this up to somewhere around here. Next up, I'm going to create a copy of this text for the subtext, this creative director. So to do that, just hold an Alt key on your keyboard and just drag it out like this. Or the other way around is just to hit Ctrl D and use your mouse to drag the new copy out. I'm going to change this to creative director. Next up is to reduce the size. Let's just go with 14 pixels here and change it from semi-bold. Let's just go with regular. Then I'm going to select a lighter shade of black, just using this color code of 4242 and 42. Now let's centralize these two texts. I just remembered we are working with auto layout, so let me just show you how we can centralize these two texts without manually tweaking it. So selecting the two texts here, going over to the properties menu, you will see this section called layout. This is where we can apply the auto layout. To apply that, going over to the right hand side, you can see this tiny button here which says toggle auto layout. The shortcut for it is Shift+A. I'm just going to click that and you will see another layer, another settings has dropped down when we have activated the auto layout. This is how we can set the alignment of our element, apply line height, then horizontal padding and vertical padding. Now let's centralize this using the settings right here. Because I want to centralize the text, going over to the alignment option, hovering through this point, you see they have different purposes. The one I'm hovering through says align top right, then this one says align bottom right. But what we want to do is to align it to the center. That is the text, this creative director to align to the center of the text. So to do that, you're just going to select align center and automatically, voila, it just fixed that. We can actually do more with this auto layout. We can apply gapping between these two texts. So just go over here and expand this. It's 17 pieces. So without us using an auto layout, for us to know the gapping between two elements, we have to do that manually. But by setting an auto layout, it just automatically does that for us. Going over to the direction of the auto layout, currently the direction is set to vertical. We can also change this to horizontal and it will go to an horizontal plane, but that's not what we want. We are just going to switch it down to vertical. I mean, there's a lot that this auto layout can do in your design. Next up, let's create this text that we have down here. So the first one is the rating. So I'm just going to hit here on my keyboard and hit 5.0 here. Then copy the text. I've taught you guys how to do that. You either use the Alt key or Ctrl D on your keyboard. And let's change this to rating. So in this case, let's just change the line height here, the gapping to 2 pieces, because that's what I actually use here. So the next thing we're going to be doing, let's just copy out this icon that we have here. If you are thinking what I'm thinking, we are going to group this icon and this text in another auto layout. So that's just the way auto layout works. If you take a look at the one we did here, you see that the icon is actually aligning to the top. We can do that using auto layout. So go back to the properties and change the alignment here to align top left, and that will just fix everything. If you are looking for where to access for icons, you can just go back to the community canvas. You don't need to leave Figma, so just go back to community and search for icon. So let me just with an N. So all these here are icon packs. You can just select and stick to it, because one thing I like doing before I start a design project is to bring out a specific icon pack I can follow to start and finish the design, because it will be weird if I'm using two different type of icons in one design project. To keep everything clean, we just stick to one. I mostly use and I highly recommend this Iconly because that is what I use all the time. So let's just head back to ours. I'm going to copy this, copy this one here, and let's just say 150 bucks, 150 here, ours, and let's change the icon here. Ctrl C. Now to paste the other icon we just copied from the other design, we don't need to scatter this auto layout. All we have to do is just select the auto layout frame and hit the normal Ctrl V. Now watch what happens. It creates another extra space to accommodate the new icon we just added. Then by using our arrow key, we can shift it to the position that we want, which is the left hand side. Then delete this other one here. I'll simply do the same for the other two. So I'll just copy this here and 100 drops, 100 here, then drops, copy it again. Okay, I didn't apply the icon on this, so let me just copy the icon here. Ctrl C, select this, sorry, Ctrl V, then use our arrow key, shift it to the left, and delete the other one. So I'm going to do the last one, which is 24 hours, 24 months, sorry, 24 here, and down here will be months. Most times our text is going to fold in into the second line because of the auto layout we have added. So to fix that, you can just nest into the particular frame that is wrapped in. Then just use your arrow key to extend it like this and it just fixes itself. Then we are going to apply the last icon. Just come over here, select the icon, Ctrl C, come over here and paste it into the overall frame. Ctrl V, use our arrow key, shift it to the left hand side, and delete the other one here. So we are done with this section, but as you can see, the spacing system between these elements are inconsistent. Looking at the one I did here, let me nest into the frame. So hovering through this, you notice this length in between the elements that we have here. And hovering through it, you can see 40 there. Come over here, same 40, and come over here, same 40. So without us manually coming to make sure that the distance between one element to the other is 40 and the distance between the second element to the third element is 40, we can use auto layout to do that. So let me show you the magic. All we have to do here is to select all the elements here, select the second one, the third one, and the fourth one, and hit Shift plus A on my keyboard. Watch what happens. We didn't even touch anything and automatically it has readjusted itself. The distance between each element here is 27 pixels. If we want them to be the exact 40 pixels of the first one, going over to the auto layout settings, we can change it from 27 on the padding to 40 and hit enter. So by using this auto layout, we didn't even stress ourselves in readjusting this element. We just had to select everything and hit Shift plus A, then auto layout just did what it knows how to do best. Then the finishing touch here is to create our button which says get in touch. I'm going to create a button without an auto layout and a button with an auto layout so you can spot the differences. So F on my keyboard, I will drag out a frame like this. I think I use 60 here, 67 as the height. So I'm going to select 67 here as the height, then add a fill to it. So it's actually a gradient color applied here because you can see the down here is actually lighter shade of black. I'm going to do the same thing here. Just go over to, let's select black. The next option here, which says gradient, we're going to click it and realign this because it was in this direction like this, and this was somewhere here. So just take your time to readjust it. In the second option, I'm going to change this to black, but not really that black. So it's going to be somewhere around here. Now we have created our gradient. Let's just cancel this. And the next thing to do is to round our corners. So go back to appearance and I'm going to round it up like this. So the next thing to do is to bring out a text and hit get in touch. Change the color to white. And let's just put it inside of the frame. Then copy the icon that we have here and paste it inside of the frame. Now this button we have created is without an auto layout and is not responsive. So let's just take this example because this is what I really wanted to show you guys before we even started creating our card. So I'm going to reduce the size of this. So let's just say the width of the button, it's somewhere around here. Going over to the properties menu, I'm going to select the both of them, the icon and the text, and shift them to the center. So we have this perfect button here. It's looking beautiful, but we have to think beyond this. What if we have a text that is longer than this get in touch? So if I was to select this get in touch and maybe change it to get started with Figma. Sorry, this is not Figma class. So one thing happens each time that we have a text that is longer than the frame inside of it, we have to manually come to the frame and adjust it to fit the width of the text. Now think about this in another way. What if we have this button in like 10 screens or 20 screens in our design? So does it mean that each time we have a text that is longer than the present frame, we have to manually now come to adjust it? I mean, that will waste and kill our time. Let me now show you how to set up a button using an auto layout. So the first thing we're going to do right here is to press T on my keyboard and we're going to be writing same get in touch. Next up, we are going to be applying an auto layout on this text. So Shift plus A on the text and to automatically turn the text into an auto layout. This is how we apply our background fill to our button. So go over to the properties, select fill right here, and I'm going to change it to the same black gradient. Change the first one, just extend this here, change it to black, and change the other one here to a lighter shade of black, to something around like this. I'm going to change the color of the text because it's not visible. So go back to the fill of the text and change it to white. Same way we added 67 to the height of this button, go over to the properties menu of the auto layout and click 67 right here. Now we are going to round the corners. Let me just round the corners to something like this. We can also add horizontal padding. Now watch what happens when we select a text that is longer than this get in touch. So I'm just going to copy the text, the button, sorry, and let's just type in a very long word like get in touch with me on my email. I know you notice something, that when we're making adjustment to the text inside of it, the frame outside of it was adjusting to it. That's just the power of auto layout. So in this way, we don't have to manually come like we did here to adjust the fill like this. We just have to come over and use auto layout and just type in any length of text that we have. So if this thing gets in touch, it's just going to adopt nicely when we are using auto layout. So let's just do it with this. The next thing we are going to be adding here is our icon. So you can just copy this directly from here, Ctrl C, Ctrl and V. Then because we want it at the left hand side, we can just use our arrow key and shift it to the left. You can now see how responsive everything is when we set in an auto layout. We can now apply this into our design. Since we're having this longer padding right here, we can just go over to the same auto layout settings and increase the horizontal padding. So let's just go with something like this and centralize it. So it's kind of too much, we can just reduce it. Next up, we're going to be copying this icon that we have here and paste it in our own design. Now we have applied all the design elements, let's now structure this design using auto layout. I'm going to first group this text and the avatar that we have here in an auto layout. So Shift plus A. Then moving on, we are going to do the same for this other one. So just select it, Shift plus A. Then I will also select the icon that we have above, Shift plus A. When we group this section and this icon in an auto layout, you can now see that the icon went to the left hand side. But what we want is to make it stick to the right hand side. We can readjust that. So what I'm going to do here is to go over to the alignment and change it to align top right, and it's going to jump back to the original position that we want it. Then the last part, we're going to group this section to the button. So select the button, Shift plus A. The reason for this is so that we can be able to manage the sizing of everything of this card on the properties menu of the auto layout, because as you can see, we need padding between this section and the button. So we can just do that on the auto layout. Let's just say we want a padding of 20, or let's just go with 30. Go over to the auto layout and hit 30 and to automatically adjust. Then the last part to make everything responsive is to click the overall frame here into an auto layout. So Shift plus A to then apply a padding on our card. If you take a look at this, you will see that the icon is touching the top of the frame and the button is touching the bottom of the frame. So for us to readjust this, you simply go to where the auto layout canvas. So just go back to the auto layout setting. On the vertical padding, I'm going to add 30 pieces to that. So let's check the responsiveness of what we just created. I'm going to shift this frame right here to the right hand side because we don't even need it. Let's just delete it. Then let's expand our frame with auto layout. You can now see how responsive everything is. So recapping everything that we just said about auto layout, we first said auto layout is like a container that helps us structure our design element in a more automatic and efficient way. Then I showed you guys how to create a button using an auto layout, so you don't manually come to tweak things around when you have a longer element within the frame. So you have to select the text, bring out the text, and change it to an auto layout using the shortcut Shift plus A. With this proper understanding about auto layout, let's now move on into the second aspect, talking about component. So a quick one, what is a component? The shortest answer for that is this. Components are like master copies or templates of a design element. I know that might not really make sense to you, but let's put that into practice. Let's assume I have this card in almost 10 places of my design. So I'm just going to make a duplicate. Let me just place it here like this. I think you can accommodate one more here and one more at the down. Let's expand this frame. I like breaking down my stuffs into practical so you can understand them better. So let's just assume that this card is in 6 places of our UI design. Our client can wake up one day and say, okay, he doesn't want the color of the button to be black, he wants it to be blue. So do you manually now go to all these individual frames that have this button to change them into blue? That will waste a lot of time. But component just helps us to create a master copy that we can make an instance out of it. So with that instance, it will now give us the ability to, apply it on all the designs. So I'm going to delete all those ones that we have here. Let's just keep one. I'm going to check out this button outside of the design because this is what I want to use for this particular example. To apply a component on this button, I'm simply going to right click here and scroll down to the section where you see create component. The short key for it is Ctrl plus Alt plus K on your keyboard. So by doing this, if you remember when we first started this tutorial, I told you guys that the asset panel is where you can find all your components. So since we have created one component, going over to the asset menu, you can now see this new tab which says created in this file, just one component. So let's just change this back to the layers panel. After applying this component, how do we know that this button is actually a component? There are two ways to know this actually. One is through the layers panel, because if you take a look at that, you can see this diamond shape on the icon of this button. This notifying us that our button is no more an ordinary button, but now a component. The second way to know if your design element is set to a component or not is through the color, because as you can see, there's this purple color that's surrounding this button. So it's another way to know if it's a component. I'm going to make a copy out of this one we have created, just like this. Using this now, we think that these two buttons are the same. Yes, they have the same field, they have the same text inside of it, but they are no more the same, simply because one is a master component and the other one is an instance. So the one that we made a copy out of it is called an instance or primary component. Then the one that we made a component first is known as a master component. So what does this apply? So this means that if we were to make plenty instances out of the master component, we can just, let's duplicate this to something like here. What do you think? We should duplicate it once more. So do you remember our client that said he wants his buttons to be blue? Instead of manually coming to tweak them, now we have turned this button into a component. We can just come over to the master component right here, go over to the color. So this is one way you can use component to your advantage. In case if you have this plenty revisions to do, component can just help you to reduce the stress. So the common mistake some people normally do is to make changes and expect it to apply to other components. It doesn't work that way. What do I mean? So let's assume I want to change the color of all the button. Going to one of the instances right here, going to the fill and changing the color to maybe like this. You can now see that the color applies only on this particular instance. It doesn't apply to other components. So the reason for this is that you can only make changes to the master component to apply to other instances, but you can't make changes to the instances and expect it to apply to other components. It doesn't work that way. So one thing you have to do when you're using component is to first select out your master component so you don't get that mixed up with all the instances. This is where pages come in, where you can just bring out a separate page so you don't get it mixed up with the instances. Now we have understood this component, let's now talk about variant. Think of variant like different versions of a component. So if I want to create like an outline of this button, I don't have to manually come to start from scratch in creating an outline of this button. I can do that using component. So you right click on this and head down to the same main component here and click add variant. So this will create another type of this button. This way we can now change it to the outline by removing the color, adding a stroke on it and let the stroke be white. We can also choose to change the color of the text within it. So just go over this and change it. Let's use the color picker to blue. And let's do the same for the other one. Let's add other variations of this button. Let's create like a hover state and create another outline version. I'm going to click this button to add another variant. Let's also want to create a button that has a gradient color in it. So I'm going to bring back our fill, go over to the gradient here. I think this is okay actually. Then let's change the color of the text within it to white. Select the both of them, go over to the color selection and change it to white. Now we have created 3 variations. Let's just make this, the gradient is not really visible. So let me head back to the linear and change the other lighter one. Let's go to lighter color to something like this. Let me now show you how to use this variant when designing. But first, I'm going to rename all this. So I'm going to select the first one and change it from default here to button. And let's just go to the second one and change it from variant 2 to outline. Then for the last one, I'm going to change it from default to gradient. When we go to the instances that we created a while ago, and I want to create like an outline version in our design, all we have to do is just to go over to the properties. On the properties one here, you can now see the different variations that we created on the component canvas of those buttons. So if it's the outline, I can just come over here, select outline, and the button right here will change to the outline version. Then if it's to change it to the gradient, I can just come over here and change it to the gradient, and automatically everything will adopt on the design. So these are how you can make use of components and narrow your way down in using variations in creating different typefaces of an element.